Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Keith McNutt. I'm the Executive Director of the Entertainment Community Fund's Western Region. We have a lot of information to cover today, so we're going to get right to it. First off, I'm fortunate to be able to introduce a wonderful person who's been a bright light and a true leader for our community during these last years, and particularly these last few weeks. So here's Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Entertainment Community Fund, Annette Benning.
Hi, thanks, Keith. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Good morning. I just want to say on behalf of the Entertainment Community Fund that we would all like to express our heartfelt concern and how much we want to help all of our community who have been affected by these devastating fires. We are going to continue to do everything that we can for every hour of the day, and we want to help you in all the program areas that we can through this crisis. And we are well aware of the fact this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And we just want to send all of our love and concern out to all of you. Thank you so much to the staff at the fund for everything they're doing in putting this webinar together. And thank you to our partners at FEMA. We so appreciate you. As part of the work, we are tremendously grateful to each of the co-sponsors of today's event for coming together in this unprecedented partnership. We all know that when we're on a set or on a stage, it's a large team of talented people that make things work and come together to make something memorable. And that's also what we do for our community in times of crisis like now. So I just want to say thank you to each and every partner organization for what you're doing in your roles to help and for coming together under this umbrella to provide crucial information to our colleagues across the industry who so urgently need it. And now I'd like to turn it over to the Director of Social Services, one of our amazing social workers, Tina Hokum, to begin the program. Tina.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you. As Annette said, I'm Tina Hokum. I'm the Director of Social Services for the Entertainment Community Fund. We are so glad that you could join us today for our webinar on FEMA, Navigating FEMA for the Entertainment Industry. I'll be facilitating our conversation with our two speakers, Brandy Richard Thompson from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and Corey Williams from the Small Business Administration, which provides support not just for businesses, but also individuals, so all of you, during times of natural disaster. Before we get into our content today, I'm going to quickly describe how we're going to use our webinar space. So on the bottom toolbar of your screen, you will see that we have a closed caption as an icon. To utilize this feature, you need to click on the closed caption icon and you would begin to see the scroll. Also on the bottom of the toolbar, you'll see the chat icon. Click on that icon to see the chat bar come right up alongside of your screen on the right-hand side. Today, we're using the chat feature as a way to share resources, links, and PDFs. You can see our agenda will be posted in the chat feature. Please know that you can cut and paste information from the chat into another Word document, into a notes in your phone, or an email that you can send to yourself. However, following today's session, we will be sending everyone that's registered for this webinar the information that we place in the chat, which will be full of our resource links and PDFs. You can submit questions by clicking the Q&A icon on the bottom toolbar. If you want to submit an anonymous question, it is recommended to click the icon, click anonymous first before you begin to type, so you may not accidentally submit a question with your name appearing. We are going to curate questions as they come in. We're going to make every effort to answer as many as we can, but we are going to have limited time. If you really like a question that someone else has put in the Q&A, please feel free to upvote that question by using the reaction button and giving it a thumbs up. That will help us curate what to answer first. Please see the agenda in the chat. Our format today will be to cover and review a section of content, then open up for the questions related to that section only. Then we're going to move on to the next section. Lastly, this webinar will be recorded and available on our Entertainment Community Fund client portal, as well as available through all of our community partners co-sponsoring today's event. And we will share that information in the follow-up email. Before we welcome Brandy, we want to emphasize that all of the community partners participating in this event are offering a wide range of services, including emergency financial assistance, mental health support, and practical help, helping you get connected to benefits and entitlements. And if you need help, we hope that you reach out. We want to highlight 2 emergency assistant funds that have upcoming application deadlines. So the Center for Cultural Information, CCI, has a relief fund for the arts community with an application that's open right now. They are offering funds up to $10,000. It's open to arts and arts workers, full-time and part-time, of nonprofit or commercial arts and entertainment organizations, from documentary film companies to commercial galleries to major studios to mom and pop recording studios. This is for everyone in the arts community: musicians, singers, dancers, and curators to security officers and bookkeepers. So the deadline is coming up fast. It's February 18th, and CCI hopes that you will apply if your home or workplace has been damaged or lost. Also, please feel free to pass on this information to any other colleague who has been affected. Don't miss the deadline. The link is in the chat. Also, New York Foundation for the Arts, NYFA, has 2 grants available. One is for dancers who have lost work due to the fires, and you can apply for essential living expenses. That deadline application is February 11th. There's another fund for visual artists, film, video, digital, electronic artists, and choreographers that can apply for aid for emergency medical expenses, including mental health. And that is deadline is February 20th. Again, we will be sending all of this in a follow-up email. So without further delay, let's welcome Brandy Richard Thompson, Public Affairs Officer from FEMA. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to express my deepest gratitude to the Entertainment Community Fund for bringing us together today. A special thank you to Annette Benning, Keith McNutt, and Tina Hookham for your leadership and unwavering dedication to supporting those in the entertainment industry during really challenging times. The recent wildfires have deeply impacted our community, including many artists, performers, and industry professionals who have built their lives here. One of those is my husband, Kerwin, who is a working actor. Recovery is not just about restoring homes, it's about restoring livelihoods, creativity, and the very essence of what makes this industry thrive. FEMA is here to ensure that no one walks this road alone, and that we are committed providing the resources needed to rebuild and recover. I want to share just a few of the resources that we have available, and then I'll be available for any questions that you might have. I hope that we have a frank discussion today. Please don't think that any question is out of bounds, because we want to make sure that you have a thorough understanding of our programs. To date, FEMA has provided over $53.1 million in aid to disaster survivors for this wildfire. This assistance will help with things like home repairs, personal property losses, medical expenses, and other disaster-related needs. If you or someone you know has not applied, please call 1-800-621-3362. You can visit disasterassistance.gov, or you can use the FEMA app to begin the process. Many in the entertainment community have been displaced, and FEMA offers transitional sheltering assistance, which provides hotel accommodations, as well as rental assistance and lodging expense reimbursement if you've gotten hotels on your own, for those whose homes are not habitable. FEMA also has disaster recovery centers, and they're open across Los Angeles County, including at Pasadena City College and UCLA Research Park West. We've also just opened a location in Altadena, and I will drop those addresses into the chat. These centers provide one-stop support for survivors, including assistance with applications and replacing vital records, which can be critical if your records were destroyed. The cleanup process is also critical, and I've seen a couple of questions already about smoke. So hazardous household waste removal is managed by the Environmental Protection Agency. It's already underway. And we also have a second phase of debris removal that is managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We've allocated $2.5 billion to this initiative, and that will clear the way for those of you who are interested in rebuilding and getting back to your lives. Unfortunately, disasters also bring out scammers, and I want you to know that FEMA never charges for applications or inspections. Always verify the ID of myself or anyone else who claims to be representing FEMA. If you suspect fraud or identity theft related to disaster aid, report it immediately to our 1-800 number at 1-800-621-3362, and someone can assist you. The emotional toll of this disaster recovery is significant. And we recognize the unique challenges faced by those in the entertainment industry. So if you or someone you know is struggling, feel free to reach out to a free and confidential mental health resource that we have provided via funding, but that's available through really competent folks who can assist you. And that's the 988 Crisis Lifeline and the Disaster Distress Helpline at 1-800-985-5990. And there's 24/7 support for both of those services. The deadline to apply for FEMA and SBA is March 10th, 2025. So we encourage you to apply as soon as possible to ensure access to all available resources. Once again, I want to thank you for having me, and I'm open to any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Brandy. So we've sort of uh, sectioned off our questions based on topic area just to stay organized. So I'm going to start with, there's a lot of questions about who's eligible, right? And who should be applying. So just to clarify, if I'm a homeowner or I'm a renter, am I eligible to apply for FEMA?
Both are eligible to apply for FEMA. If you are insured, either as a homeowner or a renter, we need to know what your insurance company is providing you before we're able to provide assistance. So many people have received a letter that makes them feel like they won't receive assistance from us, a declination letter or you're not eligible letter. And it's really just the beginning of the conversation with FEMA, because in response to that letter, we need you to upload on the FEMA app or in your online portal or fax or mail your insurance declaration page from your rental policy or your homeowner's policy, the declaration page from your vehicle policy if your vehicle was destroyed, and any subsequent communication you receive about what you will actually get from your insurance company. So once the adjuster comes out, looks at your damages, and then says you are eligible for this amount of money for these things, those are the documents that we need to determine whether you're eligible for rental assistance or any other assistance that I mentioned earlier that FEMA provides.
Thank you. And do I have to be a US citizen to apply?
No. And there are some resources on our website about how you would apply if you are not. And I'll drop that link into the chat as well.
Thank you. So there have been several different fire events, as you know, right, which have meant that people have been evacuated for one night, maybe like around the Sunset Fire, right, 2 or 3 nights for the Hearst Fire or the Kenneth Fire, and then people then have been evacuated and are still, right, unable to return to their home. If you were evacuated for any length of time, are you eligible to apply for FEMA?
If you were impacted by these particular fires that happened during the application period, and I'll make sure that I drop that into the chat, then you are eligible. There are fires that happen, unfortunately, in this area a lot. And so there are some individuals who, for instance, were impacted by the Franklin fire. That is not included in this presidential declaration. And so they would not be eligible for all of the individual assistance that I mentioned that the individuals who were impacted by the Palisades and the Eaton fire would be eligible for. So that's an
Okay,
important distinction.
that
And I
is.
you already shared the link to our disaster webpage, and
Yeah.
that will give people the actual dates
Okay.
of of when they can be eligible. And I'll put it in here too.
And does it list the fires? Like, does it list the fires that's
It
eligible or
lists the
not like
date.
that? The dates, okay. Okay, so everybody, you need to look for the dates. Another question that comes up a lot is if I left the area voluntarily due to smoke or maybe fear, right? Am I eligible for assistance?
You may be eligible for assistance. That's why we encourage individuals to register. So if you
Okay.
were displaced, you very well may be, but there may be some instances where people will register for assistance and they're not eligible. And we will determine that. That's actually a good thing for you because you don't want to have received assistance and then have us ask for that assistance back. But it's important for people to do so just to find out whether they are or not.
Right, so if I'm hearing you correctly, right, if you are unsure, you should go ahead and go through the process of applying and go through the screening to make sure.
Correct.
We have another question about loss of work. So my home isn't damaged, but I lost work or I've lost income due to the fires. Is that a role for FEMA to help with loss of work?
So in a lot of instances, FEMA provides funding, but we don't manage the program. So for loss of work, we provide funding for disaster unemployment assistance, but it is given out through the typical California unemployment agency that would typically handle unemployment. But what you would need to do is apply for disaster unemployment assistance, and I'll provide a link to that as well.
Thank you. And it sounds like this might be a similar answer, but someone was asking if they didn't live in LA, but they've lost work because the venues that they work in or bookings that they had, those venues burnt down, would they be eligible for FEMA?
So we have, and SBA can speak a little bit more about this. We have some assistance through FEMA that's available to you if you've lost things. And I know this is not directly, so stay with me responding to your question. If you've lost things that you needed to utilize to be able to be self-employed, you lost your camera, you lost your computer that you needed to do graphic design, whatever those things are. There is a provision in one of our buckets of assistance for personal property where you can receive assistance for that. So let's put that to the side for those people who are impacted. But there is also what's called loss of use. Well, not loss of use, what is called SBA will tell you. But if you weren't able to do business in LA, you would be eligible for a disaster loan, but
Okay.
not a grant from FEMA because FEMA does not provide any additional assistance beyond what I just shared for those individuals who had businesses and had losses as a result.
Thank you. So it sounds like we're going to hear more about that through the SBA. So thank you so much. So our next section, I just wanted to highlight, I know you already said this, but we're going to be putting some things in the chat. So just to highlight for everybody that there's 3 ways that you can apply, which Brandy said, right? You can go online. There's the FEMA app. You also can pick up the telephone and talk to a representative on the phone. Brandy, I also just wanted to make sure we're accurate in this, and that if it's just feeling too big, right, somebody can go to a recovery center and apply at a recovery center, right? So if it's just all feeling too overwhelming, we would just really encourage everybody to go to one of the recovery centers, have the care of talking with somebody directly face to face, and they would have the ability to walk you through that process. Is that correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
I'm dropping the locations here in the chat.
Okay, perfect. And then just also wanted to do a little bit of a shout out to the recovery centers, that these are hubs, just like Brandy had mentioned. These are places where you can get connected to a lot of other resources like LA County Records, the Red Cross is there. So if you're feeling like some of these applications and processes are just too big for you to do online and to do the apps, and there's a lot to do, know to think about going to a recovery center to directly speak with somebody. Also just a nod, right, to stay organized, right? We've heard from a lot of folks how helpful it is to have a binder or a folder to be writing down your ID numbers and the people you talk to, and just to kind of stay organized in your recovery process because it can be a lot to manage. Our next section is the application process. So how long does it usually take to hear back? Is there a kind of a standard that we could think about?
I would say 72 hours approximately, just to hear back that we've received your application and based on the initial information that you provided, this is what you're eligible for. It also doesn't really take very long for us to grant assistance to you once an inspector has visited your home. So there have been cases where people have come in to chat with us about their application and they were like, well, I thought I was going to get something and I haven't gotten it. And we were like, look in your app, and they look in their app or in their bank account and the funds are already there. So please make sure that when you enter your banking information that it's accurate, because that could be that could cause a delay, an unnecessary delay in the process.
Great. And is it a safe assumption that that information is things like your banking account and your routing number? Those are two numbers people have to have accessible. So those can get a little tricky, right? So just to highlight, it's so important to make sure, if you're feeling a little flooded, to have an ally or family member right there to be checking what you're entering. So we're sure that it's entered appropriately. And then I know you said this before, but it seems worth repeating. Can you just repeat the application deadline that everyone should be aware of?
It is March 10th. And it's possible that that deadline may be extended, but I would encourage you to go ahead and apply.
Wonderful. And if I'm missing sort of the essential documents that I need during the application process, do I need to wait to get all those documents before I apply, or should I just start?
I would start and go to a disaster recovery center or start to upload the documents that we've requested from you. It's really important to read the letters that we send and also those little cute graphics that explain the things that we need. Um, and ensure that you're giving us those documents. A lot of times people will look at the information that we give them and they're like, well, I didn't really need moving and storage expense, so I didn't focus on this at all. But there may be another document that's there that we need from you, like your ID. We might need you to take a photo of your ID and upload that so that we can confirm that you are in fact the person at that address who's registering for assistance. The insurance documentation, all of those things may take some time to gather. You might have to replace some documentation, but at least you've started the process and you know what you're going to need.
Thank you. So it's sounding really important just to stay close to that portal and to be checking in, and that's where you're going to get your notifications. Is that right?
That's a great way to stay in contact, especially because some people are having to move. So the other important point that you made me think of, Tina, is that individuals should update their address, their mailing address, as often as they change their mailing address so that you can ensure that you're receiving mail from us. If you have elected to get a check in the mail instead of a direct deposit, that check is going to go to the address that we have on file for you, not the address where the damage occurred, but the address that we have on file. So updating your phone number to a phone number where an inspector can actually reach you or a FEMA representative can reach you and offer you different types of assistance, ask you additional questions is going to be extremely important.
Great reminder. Okay, so we've completed our first section. I'm going to return to Rebecca just to see our Q&A. So one of the questions was, should I wait to apply until I know how much my insurance is going to provide me?
I would go ahead and apply. Now, I would also go ahead and apply or request assistance from your insurance because you're going to need that information for us, but I would go ahead and apply. Unless you believe you're not going to receive information from your insurance for like 60 days, then I would apply.
Wonderful. And another question is there FEMA assistance for people who have had a home destroyed that was being rented out to somebody else?
This is an excellent question. If you had a home that was destroyed, we would consider that and you did not live there as your primary residence, that would be a secondary residence to us. And FEMA assistance is for individuals to have a place that's habitable and safe to stay. One vehicle, it's minimal support, right, to get you back on your feet so that you can then continue your recovery process. And so we don't provide assistance for a second home. But if that is a source of income for you, you may be eligible for assistance through SBA or some other options to be able to rebuild your home.
Fantastic. Okay, so our next section, we're going to focus on what does FEMA assist with. So can you talk a little bit about duplication of coverage? We've heard a lot about that term and wondering if you could dive right in and help us understand it a little bit better.
At FEMA's inception, we could not duplicate assistance when we were created. And at that point, it was insurance and assistance from nonprofit organizations and things like that that we had to be on the lookout for. That is because the government can't provide assistance that's already been provided for the same thing, which is the most important part of this. So if your insurance company is providing you with assistance to repair your home and you still have a deficit, there's still an amount that you need to repair your home that the insurance company doesn't provide, then that would not be a duplication of benefits if you receive a grant from us for an amount that you didn't receive from your insurance company. However, if your insurance company assists you and covers everything that you need, and you no longer need anything to repair your home, any money to repair your home, you cannot also receive home repair from FEMA. Because when you apply for FEMA, and that this is somewhat interesting for people to understand, you're registering for everything we have to offer. You're not picking and choosing and saying, I only want this or that. We're determining what you're eligible for based on the information that you provide to us. And that sometimes can be confusing because people may think, well, I didn't ask you for home repair, but we may give you some anyway. And so if something like that happens, you have to make sure that you can parse out what is already being covered and what is being covered by FEMA. This also applies to GoFundMe pages, to assistance that you might get from an employer that allows you to stay at a hotel. If we're providing a hotel, you shouldn't also be receiving hotel benefits from your employer, but you can choose our program over what's being offered by your employer or vice versa. So I hope that doesn't make it more muddy, but it's really just that we cannot provide the same assistance as another source.
Great. Yeah, that's great. And I'm so glad you mentioned crowdsourcing because we have had a lot of questions about GoFundMe pages, taking that Airbnb credit, right? Or getting rental assistance from family or friends. I know you spoke about it, but do they have to declare that or like what's the, how does somebody know? I mean, just to kind of be honest, I mean, like what does one do, right? Because people were in crisis, they started doing things to stabilize, right? And then they're applying. So just wondering if you could talk about like what people should know.
Well, it's important to know that you're applying for everything, even though you don't think so. That's one.
Okay.
Two, it's important to know that if you receive something from somewhere else, typically, and this has just been my experience in chatting with people about their cases, they'll tell a caseworker, hey, and I also got this help from Disney, and I got this help from this place and that place. And then that's what causes the churn of, let's figure out, what other assistance they've received. So everyone, in my view, most of the people who receive assistance are really trying to be honest and forthright, and this is what I've received.
Yeah.
And that can then cause them a problem, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because they're just
Yeah.
trying to share all this information and they didn't realize that FEMA had provided them money for that thing. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I hope
Okay.
it makes sense to everybody. If not, please put a question in our Q&A. Is the FEMA amount determined by individuals or by a household, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. So we call it the individuals and households program for a reason. It's really for all of the folks who are living in that household will receive a grant for home repair and will receive a grant for any personal property that was lost. We know that there are other types of living arrangements. There are people who rent from each other and all those kinds of things. So if that is you and you rented a room from someone, then you would need to let us know that. And the homeowner, the household responsible party would need to let us know that. And we would need to get a lease agreement or some agreement showing that that was the case. Sometimes that's challenging, but that's what we need to be able to break out the registrations and be able to show that you are eligible for your contents, what you had in the home, and the homeowner is eligible for their contents and the repair of the home.
Okay, great. And is FEMA assistance taxable? Is that something I need to declare?
No,
Okay. And does it affect my Social Security eligibility or my Medi-Cal or any of my other benefits and entitlements?
I am not aware that that's the case. I would check, but I'm not aware that that's the case.
Okay,
And it also, because you've been impacted by a disaster, you have longer to apply to submit your tax returns.
great. And do I have to pay back what I get from FEMA?
And
It's a
what
grant, right? It's a grant.
it's a
I
grant,
don't have to
no.
pay. Okay, just checking. Okay, we're going to transition a little bit just to kind of temporary housing. And I know you had covered it a little bit in your opening, but if I'm couch surfing, right, I'm displaced from my home and I'm couch surfing or I'm staying with family and friends and bouncing around because that's what I need to do, is that eligible for some kind of support through FEMA?
It is. It's part of our updates to our program, and I can share some information on how individuals could be eligible for that. So couch surfing can be eligible because you need to pull some of your weight while you're there.
Okay. And we had a question come in earlier that if somebody evacuated to another state to stay with family during this time period and they incurred airfare or rental costs, are those expenses something that would be eligible to submit or be part of what you could help with?
They could be. They could be. Each situation is a little bit different. They could be. And I will also caveat that by saying there's a maximum amount of grant funding that's available for those two buckets. It's
Okay,
$43,600 for home repair side and $43,600 for personal property. As a result of that, you may have maxed out your assistance for home repair. And so therefore, you may not be eligible for some of the other things like lodging expense reimbursement if you stayed at a hotel and needed some assistance for that because maybe you maxed out, you got the max grant to fix your home. You would still be eligible for rental assistance because that doesn't impact that max grant amount. That's on the home repair side. But on the other side, for personal property, you could receive a grant for your car. You could receive a grant to replace your eyeglasses that were lost, your cane, your all kinds of things. And that adds up over
yeah,
time. And so while I say you could potentially be eligible, part of the reason why I'm saying that is because you might hit the max in the process.
yeah, thank you. And I know you talked about it a little bit, but can you just speak to the transitional sheltering assistance program? So like if somebody was needing to access that, what should they do?
That program, we will call you and
Oh,
let you
okay.
know that you're eligible for it. And it allows you to stay at a hotel and we will pay the hotel, the taxes and pet fees only. And then
Okay.
um, we'll let you know what additional information we would need to recertify you for that program. But that's a program that you can't opt into.
Okay.
We would let you know.
Okay, thank you. So I would apply for FEMA and then I would wait to hear if I was eligible for that transitional sheltering assistance program.
They would give you a call. Now,
Okay.
conversely, on the other side, there's lodging expense reimbursement. That's a different program, but it's a hotel program. So some
Okay.
people get it confused. So if I had to stay in a hotel for a few days, I can submit receipts to FEMA to receive reimbursement for that. And that's separate from TSA.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarity. So it sounds like it's important, right, to keep your receipts, right? Keep organized, right? Get your folder, your whatever you need, right? Because you're going to need those receipts to submit if you're eligible for that type of reimbursement. Wonderful. And does FEMA help with, I think you've already covered this, but it was a question, like new housing costs, like security deposits, or, I finally found a place, a new apartment to be with my family. Is there help through FEMA for that like large cost, right? That first and last, the security deposit, monthly assistance. Can you speak a little bit to that?
I'll I'll provide a fact sheet about rental assistance,
Thank
but
you.
typically we provide the first 3 months. So what that could mean is that you paid first and last and the first month, and then your assistance was exhausted
Okay.
for the first 3 months. And then you would want to submit the receipts for that to be eligible for additional assistance. Like that's how the process works.
Okay.
So people should really pay attention. Individuals who are in that situation should pay attention that they are submitting the documentation in a timely fashion so that they can be ready to pay rent for the next month that comes up. So while they may not be eligible for first and last month's rent or the security deposit, they will most probably get enough money to be able to cover it. But then they would need to ask for the additional assistance, the next chunk of assistance soon in order to be able to continue to pay for their rent.
Great. And again, I'm getting all that through my portal. Like
You're
that's kind of
getting,
how I'm staying in tune to these timelines and deadlines and all of that.
yes and no. So
Okay.
we don't know that you need additional rental assistance until you let us know that. So this process of as soon as you have receipts, uploading them and telling us what that's for, as soon as you have a lease agreement in a new place, uploading it and telling us what that's for, will trigger our team to reach out to you to ensure that you have the information that you need. Now, there are some letters that we'll send, but I would encourage everyone who's on this call to take control of your recovery and ensure you're sending us the information so that there isn't a question about the fact that you're continuing to need rental assistance because you've already signed the lease and here are my receipts.
Great. And I'm uploading that in my portal. That's
Mhm.
how I'm doing that. Okay, wonderful. So we've kind of concluded our next section. I'm going to check with Rebecca and see, Rebecca, are there questions coming in? Give me a second here just to see. Okay, so what is the process if I've registered and scheduled an inspection, but cannot be at the property to meet the inspector and show ID because I'm in another state or I just have had to, I'm far away?
There's a form that you can submit that allows another person who's over 18 to be present on your behalf.
Okay,
And you would need to upload that ahead of the inspection. That's a very important question because the inspector will reach out to you 3 times at different times of day. And if they aren't able to reach you, they're going to put you back into the queue for like the next opportunity to be inspected. So you would like, if you know you're not in the area, go ahead and get that form into your account so that we can reach out to someone else to be there on your behalf.
great. And I get the form in my portal?
I don't think the form is in your portal, but
Or
I'll
do I
see if
go
I
to the
can put a
website?
form in the chat.
Okay. Or maybe it's on the website, something like that?
I
Or who?
I believe that let me check on that because I
Okay.
believe that we're going to ask you to write a letter with certain information in it. It may not be an actual form.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. And then what if you don't have access to a computer to receive and send anything and everything? What should I do?
You should fax, and I'll share our fax number, or mail your documents, or go to a disaster recovery center and share those documents and have them take them for you.
Right, that's a great question. I'm sure many people are in that situation.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to move to our next session is home repairs and personal property. So you've talked a little bit about this already, but just to highlight, so if I have insurance that covers my home repair and personal property, I should still apply for FEMA. The question was, should I still apply for FEMA? But you already answered that, right? That if I have insurance, renters or homeowners still go through the process and apply, and you'd be assessed for what FEMA could participate with. Someone asked a question, if I have the California Fair Plan, right, which we all know is typically under an underinsured policy, and I get denied or I get partial coverage through the California Fair Plan, what steps do I need to make sure that I'm getting the gap, I guess is what they're saying, through FEMA?
That's an excellent question that it will take both Corey and I to respond to, but I will say you'll apply for FEMA. Hopefully, you'll get as much of a grant as you can. So that, in addition to the FAIR plan, will help you. And then I would encourage individuals to apply for SBA because they provide a low interest loan that can also help you with personal property, I think up to $100,000, and for your home up to $500,000. That can help to bridge the gap. Now, I know how much homes cost here, and that may not bridge the total gap, but putting those resources together and any other resources that are available, like the state, I believe provides $10,000 per individual who's been impacted. That's how you start the process of putting it back together.
Thank you. And it sounds like you already answered this, but people do need to begin the process of documenting and itemizing personal property loss. In that's part of the assessment. Is that true or accurate?
Our inspector is going to determine what losses you have when they come out from the FEMA side. I would say that that would be more important from an insurance perspective, from the
Okay.
insurance side to document the actual items. But I will acknowledge that FEMA assistance, not only is it grant assistance and it's only there to just get you back on your feet, it's also not going to replace the thing that you had at the cost that you purchased it. So it's not going to, I've had people call me and say, but my flat screen television costs this
Right.
amount and I only received this amount. It's not going to get you back everything that you had before, unfortunately.
Thank you for that clarity. And I think you sort of hinted at this before too, but if I have professional equipment, like musical instruments, my camera, my makeup kit, is that listed under personal property, or or those business expenses?
That would be under personal property. So you may be
Okay.
eligible for replacing those things that will allow you to actually do your work moving forward.
Okay, great. Wondering if we could pivot and talk about medical and dental needs due to the fire. And what does that bucket cover, or how should we think about needs in that way?
You should think about, I had smoke inhalation and now I'm having to go to the hospital on a regular basis, or I had to have some breathing treatments. I had mental health challenges as a result. That's also something that can be reimbursed. Um, anything that happened to you as you were fleeing that is a direct impact based on what happened during those fires could be considered. You got in a car accident as you were trying to evacuate, those kinds of things.
Okay,
Again, but there's a maximum on it of what you
okay,
can receive. So one of the keys of federal assistance and recovery, I was talking to a young lady the other night about this, is to piece all of these resources together, especially early during a disaster, early during the recovery period, because you may want to take the mental health assistance that's offered for free that we pay for and utilize that instead of requesting reimbursement for mental health expenses that you've paid out of pocket for. Let's figure out how to piece everything
yeah,
together to get you as much as you possibly can to be able to recover successfully.
it's a wonderful point. Very, very, thank you. Um, and we're going to focus on clean and kind of sanitized phase, right? That I know people are moving into now, and wondering if you could talk about what's covered, the process, the Army Corps piece, and just sort of cover all of that.
Clean and sanitize is actually something that we offer. It's $300. It's not a lot. That will help you to clean your property. So that is over and above all of the grants that I mentioned. You can submit receipts for things that you used yourself or you hired somebody to come in and help you to clean. In addition to that, FEMA has paid the state of California for debris removal. The state of California determined that they would work with EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to do hazardous waste debris removal. and the Army Corps of Engineers to do the rest of the debris removal process. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, is on the ground picking up lithium ion batteries, all the things that you can't even go back into the area if they're still there. So they are doing that work right now and removing that debris. As soon as they are finished, the Army Corps of Engineers can start their work. So yesterday, the county put out what's called a right of entry form. The form is what allows us to do phase 2 with the Army Corps of Engineers. The hazardous waste that EPA does, we're going to do that regardless. You don't have to opt into that. It's just something that we do for the greater good because those toxins cannot stay there and you rebuild. But the process for the Army Corps of Engineers coming and doing debris removal on your property starts with you completing this right of entry form. They accelerated the process because people were very upset that it was going to take longer to get this form to put it out on yesterday. I have not seen it. I'm still trying to get my hands around it. But if you do not opt in, and I'll share the link to that form and to the information that the county has provided, you will not be eligible for debris removal. Debris removal can cost upwards of $100,000, $170,000 to do it properly and in line with local, state, and federal guidelines. And so there are some people who want to do it on their own because they want to hurry up and they want to get on down the road with their rebuilding process. And that's totally fine. I believe they've created an opt-out form of some sort so that they know that that's what you're doing. But just know that if you don't submit the form, you're basically opting out. And then you will be responsible. Each homeowner is responsible for doing that work on their property. So you
Okay.
can't not do it.
Okay. And so again, if I don't happen to be at this very helpful webinar, hearing you, right? How do I know, right, that I'm supposed to opt in? Or is there like something popping up on my portal? Am I needing to be checking in? How are folks, right, knowing what to do?
So we work very closely with the state and the county to share this information. Like we just did a video that I'll be sharing today on this process. And, you know, through social media, through media and other ways, we try to get
Okay.
this information out. But it is a collaborative effort. And so we don't talk about it to you on your portal
Okay.
because we in rare government form, we're not responsible for this right of entry form. The county is,
Okay.
and so there
Okay.
are town halls each day and other
Okay.
ways that you can get information about it. But I'll drop the link so that you have it. And I have a full list of all of these resources that
Thank
I'm going
you.
to share with you, and you can share it with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then we had a very specific question, so I just want to be sure to get it in before we transition. But so this one participant today basically said, so I guess on their insurance line item, right, they have debris removal as part of their insurance package, but their coverage is maybe like $10,000 to $20,000. And as you cited, right, this process could be $150,000. And so I guess their question was, you know, will they get part? Would they get the gap if their insurance is covering part of it, but not obviously that whole amount?
So at the end of the process, if they've opted in to have us to do the debris removal, the Army Corps of Engineers, then that amount will be requested of them based on the information that they sent us in their file about what they received from their insurance company. So
Okay.
they would just have to write a check from the insurance company, or the insurance company can actually write the check for the $20,000 once the Army Corps has done the work and then given them rights back to their property because the work is complete.
Okay, great. And then I think you did say this, but there was another question that was asking, are there Environmental Protection Agency rules about independently clearing the land?
There are. And a lot of people are talking about relaxing rules and those kinds of things. We don't know what's going to happen with that, but right now you do have to abide by those rules. And just a note about the amount that you would pay to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, you wouldn't have to pay the difference. You'd only
Okay.
be responsible for what you received from your insurance company, because we can't duplicate benefits. To provide that, you wouldn't have to pay the difference between the 20,000 and the 170,000 that it actually costs to do that work.
Thank you. A couple other questions. Oh, I think we answered this, but is there a cost associated with the Army Corps of Engineers clearing property? So if they opt in, is there a cost to the homeowner? Great. If my home wasn't destroyed, but it is uninhabitable due to toxins and smoke, am I eligible? And how can I find out if and when my home is safe for me to live in?
That is an excellent question. I don't believe that it's totally fleshed out. I have been sharing resources about smoke and health guidelines that have been provided by the county with individuals, so that they can use that as a basis for the fact that maybe they should not go back to their home if that's what they're saying, that they, it's not
Right.
going to be safe for them to be there. But we are very clear about the specifics from our program in order to receive rental assistance, what makes your home not uninhabitable. And it
Okay.
does not include problems with the air right now.
Okay.
So the county or other organizations that have put out health warnings and alerts and those kinds of things would have to say that this place is uninhabitable in order for FEMA to be able to provide you assistance to live elsewhere, because your home isn't able to be lived in. But there are a lot of resources available just for your own knowing and sanity about whether or not it's safe for you to be in the area. And I really encourage people to view those because it's, we're wearing masks when we go into those areas.
Yeah. Thank you. Next question, what information should we ask an inspector in person? And what is the order of our responsibilities after the inspector comes?
I don't know if there are a lot of questions that you would ask the inspector. I mean, they're going to go through your property and make decisions basically without you, but I would ask them to show you their ID, and make sure that they are actually an employee of the federal government, know information about your file, because if they don't, then they're most probably fraudulent. So
Okay,
I
great.
would focus on that.
And is there any responsibility after the inspector comes? What does one do after that? I'm checking my portal.
Yeah.
You're checking your portal. Okay, for the outcome. And do you have access to the inspector's report or the inspector's analysis?
I think you can request it through like a Freedom of Information Act. You should be able to get anything that's in your file. But
Okay,
I don't know that that's something we would typically provide to you. I think you would have to ask for it.
okay, great. And another question about what does clean and sanitize cover? Heavy metals, asbestos, soil testing, removal. Is there a hazardous waste list?
I will drop the clean and sanitize information in the chat. I don't know how far that $300 is going to go for the things that you just listed.
Right.
I'll drop it.
Thank you.
I have a whole list. I'll do it when I stop talking.
Great. Thank you so much. And the next question is, should renters opt out or in of the owner of the property? I'm not quite sure I understand. I'm not sure who.
Oh, I think I understand.
Okay, thank you.
So they cannot opt into debris removal. A renter can't opt in on behalf of an owner. An owner would need to
Okay,
opt in. So
okay.
that would be information like, let's say your owner lives in Colorado and doesn't really understand what's going on here, that you would want to share with them so that they could start that process.
Thank you. You got it right. I got feedback. Okay. And our last section, we're doing pretty good with time, everybody, is denials and notifications. So can you share with us what leads to an ineligible determination?
Oh, we talked about that at the top. So ineligible means we need to have a conversation.
Great.
It means we
Okay.
need more information from you and just read down into the letter to figure out what we need.
And then I go to the recovery center with my documents. I go to my portal. I follow up with what they're saying that you need in order to move my application forward. Is that right?
Mhm.
Right. Um, uh, let's see. So if I don't agree with what's happening and I wanted to appeal, if I've been truly been denied, I guess, sorry, there's a couple questions of when is deny, right? Or is there an appeal process? And can you speak a little bit about that or what I should know?
So when you get a letter that says you are denied, it will tell you for what assistance and it'll tell you what we need, if we need anything. Actually, denied isn't denied until you've gone through all of the appeal options that are available to you. I believe you have 2 appeals and then some type of a meeting of the minds with folks in order to be fully denied and done.
Okay,
So when we send you a letter, you have 60 days to reply. So earlier you were asking me about insurance and whether or not you should go ahead and apply. Yes, go ahead and apply. But if you don't think you're going to have the information within 60 days, then you could potentially be denied because you didn't give us any information within the 60 days. So we're going to send you a letter based on what you've submitted and the fact that you've registered for assistance. It's going to say you're ineligible because of this, and this. We need this, and this. And I just walked somebody through this in their portal. They were able to see the documents that we were asking for.
okay,
You need to submit those within 60 days. The next go round, if you've submitted that and then we send you a letter, we have 30 days to reply to you. We send you a letter and say, well, you're still not eligible for this, and this. Then you can come back and send us additional information that says, yes, I am eligible. This often happens with things like you sent us a letter that said that you were renting the property and we called the person and you weren't really renting the property, or the person said, I don't even know this person, something along those lines. And then you would have to submit something else to us that actually shows that you're renting the property. Understanding that after 2 or 3 times of that, you're not going to be eligible for that assistance. So um that's when denied is actually denied, is after you've gone
okay.
through 3 of those iterations of appeals with us.
Thank you. And so it's sounding just really important to stay informed, read the forms thoroughly, right? Be sure you're checking and you're not missing what to do as your next step. And if you're really flooded, to go to recovery center and just talk through it with somebody or pick up the phone and call, right? They can look up your file and see where things are maybe getting stuck or maybe where the person needs to take an action step. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. And then I wasn't going to do this, but I did have one throwback question, which was, so if somebody's medicine, right, prescription medicine was lost in the fire, right, and now their insurance company is not refilling it, right, because it's not within that time frame, is that something that FEMA would cover?
Yes.
Okay, so they would just submit the receipt. Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any lasting tips or tricks you can share with us, Brandy. We
Tips and
so
tricks.
appreciate your time.
I think the biggest tip is we are a government agency. And there are certain documents that we need. If we tell you that we need to, like if when I send you the habitability information for your home, that we need to know that your water was off or that the electricity was off. If any of those things apply, then send us that. Don't send us an air quality report when the water is out, and that would suffice.
Okay,
So when we ask you for things, it's really important that you send us what we need so that the caseworker, when they're sitting there with your file, they don't have any questions because all the information is right there or you've explained it. And if we can help you as public affairs folks understand that and help you to craft it, like ask us and we're happy to support.
That's wonderful. And I jumped the gun. There are two other questions, so I'm so sorry. But this is a good kind of wrap up one. Does FEMA have a direct phone number to confirm the identity of a FEMA number or worker? So I guess people are asking, like, how am I sure, right? Just in the kind of the fraudulent scams we're hearing about, what does somebody do to really validate or verify they're with FEMA?
You should be able to either see in your app and portal that you have been assigned an inspector,
Okay.
or call us and know that you've been assigned an inspector. And we can
Okay.
give you basic information about the inspector and those kinds of things. And I know that is a pain when you have to wait on hold to speak to someone. So if you're aware that you've been assigned an inspector, when the inspector reaches out to you, and it may be from a cell phone number because we have contractors that do that work, have them to show you their ID. Come up with
Okay.
ways that you can, one, feel safe, but also move along with the process so that it doesn't delay your assistance. So that's the best answer I can give. I've asked them to try to look at having a 1-800 number that the inspectors call from, or something that's really clear to people, but we don't have that right now. So I don't
Okay.
want to give you hope that it'll happen.
Okay, great. And then does FEMA use subcontractors?
We use subcontractors for inspections.
Okay. Okay. Right. So this person was saying this is sort of along the fraud piece, that she received a call from someone that said she does not work directly for FEMA, but is part of a company that FEMA uses for large disaster recovery. So does that sound scammy, or that might be true?
No, it might be true, but
Okay.
she should have a badge.
Okay.
I don't know where my badge went. She should have a badge, and she
Okay.
an ID number from FEMA. And if she
Okay.
can't give you that, then no.
Okay, wonderful. And then if my landlord refuses to clean the property and make it livable from toxic ash. So if he refuses to clean the property and make it livable from toxic ash, am I eligible for moving expenses? So I guess this is from the renter's perspective. If the homeowner, right, isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, how does the renter, what course of action or what resources does a renter have?
Yes, that's where the moving and storage expenses could come in. And they
Okay.
can provide receipts for that. But also, if your landlord, or in any of these instances, get this information in writing from people. Don't just let them
Okay.
tell you that this is the case. Get the letter so that you can submit the letter that says, as of this date, the landlord won't do this. And so therefore I need rental assistance or moving and storage expense.
Okay. Great. And I'm sorry you can't, our chat is disabled from our participants, but we did just want to let you know that everyone's giving you tons of hearts and thumbs ups and just saying thank you so much for being so brilliant and being so generous with all of your information and sharing your time with us. So just wanted to pass that along, and we're going to say thank you and farewell to Brandy, and we'll look forward to all the resources we talked about, and we guarantee that all this stuff will be coming to you guys through our follow-up email. So you have it to begin doing the work. Thank you so much, Brandy.
Thank you.
Now I'm excited to welcome Corey Williams from the Small Business Administration. Thank you, Corey. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Tina, and thank you, Annette and Keith. And first off, my heart goes out to those that were devastated by these fires. I've been doing this for 19 years, and it just seems like these fires are just getting worse and worse. So, and I'm glad to be able to present today. Again, my name is Corey Williams, Public Information Officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. And a lot of people during disaster don't realize the role that the U.S. Small Business Administration plays in times of disaster. Not only do we help out businesses of all sizes, but we help out homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. So let's start with the business aspect. And I'm going to try to incorporate, again, Brandy had an amazing presentation. She covered a lot, and I was taking notes so I can try to minimize a few of the questions. So businesses can borrow up to $2 million to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, machinery, inventory, and equipment. But the most important thing for businesses that I want to emphasize is the need for working capital. And for some landlords, because I know that was a point of emphasis as far as landlords, is economic injury can mean lost rents. So any tenants that, if the property is totally destroyed, that's rental income that has been impacted because there's no home to actually rent out. So for businesses, the interest rates are as low as 4%. It's a 12-month deferment, so 12-month no payment, 12-month zero interest accrual. So again, for any landlord that has any damages to their rental properties or any businesses that were impacted, they can borrow up to $2 million, again, for the repair, replacement, disaster damage, real estate, machinery, inventory, and equipment, as well as working capital to sustain themselves during this recovery period. Now, one of the things that was mentioned also was business interruption. So, as a result of the fires, many storefront businesses, many landlords are also affected because there's a business interruption. And some business owners may not have business interruption insurance. So, that's where that also creates economic injury. Economic injury comes in so many aspects. It can be drops in sales, it can be cancellation of accounts payable, it can be lost rent. It can be not being able to take care of your mortgage or lease obligations. It's so many ways that can be impacted with economic injury. And although the deadline to apply is October the 3rd, I'm sorry, October 8th, 2025 for economic injury only. Again, October 8th, 2025 for economic injury only. So many businesses and landlords wait until June, July, or August, and they say, "Oh, well, Corey, we've had a drop in sales since January when the fires hit, or we had to lay off some of our best employees in March because the books are tight." The reason why we're here is to make sure we're very proactive for businesses and landlords to go ahead and apply for SBA now and not wait till it's too late. That's why, for all of our loans, so once you get into the system with a completed application and you get an approval, you have up to, a year to not only take the funding, but if the funding is not enough, you can request increases in loan amounts for up to 2 years. So let's say we get maybe that unsecured amount, which is 25,000 for the physical loss and 25,000 for the economic injury. But like in April, we start realizing, there's still economic injury because we're not in this for the short haul. We're in this for the long run. We are the primary source of long-term recovery for not only businesses of all sizes, but nonprofits as well. So when we get into that process in April or May, and we realize that maybe that first 50,000 wasn't enough, well, you can contact your case manager and request increases in loan amount, or because of the building codes and different things to rebuild your property, it may be 6 months to get your property started. Well, that's 6 months of lost rent. That way we can actually start you on that process of of kind of having those funds now versus 6 months when it's a little bit too late and you're, kind of behind on your mortgage. Now,
Can
for
I ask
non
you a quick question? Sorry.
Sure,
I just
sure.
wanted to focus a little bit on economic injury because I think for some
Yes.
of us in our community, that would be a lane that we might use the SBA. So I know there was a couple questions we had earlier in the hour about, my venue burned down. I live out of state and my venue burned down, or I've had confirmed work, right, that's been canceled, or I just don't know what's going to happen in the arts community because of all of the losses. Is that a lane for economic injury?
That is a lane for economic injury, and that's the purpose of the economic injury disaster loan program, to provide that working capital. I mean, Tina, we've seen storefront businesses have to almost recreate their marketing to do, more online businesses, or, maybe even relocate if go from a storefront to a food truck or whatever may be the case. If there's gig workers,
Yeah.
those are all eligible to apply for the SBA program for the economic injury disaster disaster loan program, as well as the landlords and any business owners as well. We want to make sure we're capturing all those that were impacted, whether it was business interruption, drops in sales, laying off employees, whatever it takes to get the businesses and nonprofits back on their feet. That's the purpose of the U.S. Small Business Administration's program for
Okay.
economic injury.
So if
Um,
I felt like I was a candidate for the economic injury loan, could you
mhm.
walk us a little bit through the process? And I guess one of the first questions that I'm hearing is, because so many in our community work in a gig economy, right? They're kind of job to job to job to job. Can you speak a little bit about the ability to have to show ability to pay, right, the loan? Because I know that's very hard right now for people to understand what the next 6 months or 12 months may be related to cash flow and income coming in.
Another outstanding question. So we do look at credit history, we do look at repayment ability, but a lot of what we're doing right now is going to be projections because we don't know what February 2025 will hold. We don't know what March 2025 will hold. But what we can do is go back to your tax returns and see, okay, well, in February 2025, Rebecca had, $40,000 of income for the month just doing different gigs, whether it was performing, radio shows or doing comedy gigs or whatever may be the case.
Right.
And as long as that's reported verified income, then our actual case managers or loan officers can actually look at those numbers and say, okay, well, we see that Rebecca made 40,000 in February 2024, but in February 2025, there's only $15,000 a month in gigs. So they can easily identify, well, that's 25,000 right there. Then we go to the next month and to say that, things started to really pick up in March of 2024 at the time. She did $60,000. Now there's only 30,000. Now we got another 30,000 that we can add on to that number. So that's why it's so critical. One, that, any of the business owners have to have their most recent filed tax return. Now, keep in mind that we're not talking about the 2024 taxes because we're well beyond that. And as Brandy alluded to, there may be extensions through the Internal Revenue Service that you're eligible for. So more or less, it could even be the 2023 taxes where we can see what those numbers may look like. So, and that's really going to be the biggest thing for us to be able to have our loan officers project and get the best loan initially to start that process. Now, for nonprofits, they're treated very similar to businesses. They can borrow up to $2 million to repair, replace disaster damage real estate, machinery, inventory, equipment. While the business loans are at 4%, as low as 4%, nonprofit interest rates are fixed at 3.625. Again, no payment for an entire year, no interest accrual for an entire year. And it's so important to note, especially for nonprofits, when you think about different events that may have been canceled or postponed. Well, for that nonprofit, if there was an event set, let's say for February 20th, and now that event is canceled, well, that's revenue that has been impacted for that nonprofit. Same as a business. If we have a business that had an accounts payable or an event that they were anticipating a major amount of money, and that event gets canceled or pushed back, well, again, that creates economic injury or economic strain. And that's why we have that economic injury disaster loan program for the businesses as well as nonprofits. Now,
Okay.
a lot of people don't realize, Tina, is that the most important aspect or the biggest arm of the Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience is our loans to homeowners and renters. So homeowners can borrow up to $500,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged real estate, and up to $100,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property, with interest rates as low as 2.563%. Again, no payment for a year, no interest accrual for a year. Also, with homeowners, now this is talking about your primary residence. So keep in mind that if you are a landlord, and again, that was a part of the questions before, if you are a landlord, you will be treated as a business because it's for your primary residence as far as the homeowner's rate. Now, If there is a situation what we call extended family, so let's say that Emily has a home in the Altadena, and she lets her mother-in-law live there rent free or anything like that while she may be traveling on different entertainment opportunities. So if the mother or mother-in-law is living there rent free, that will be considered an extended family situation. In that case, they may be eligible, Emily may be eligible, or anyone may be eligible for the lower interest rate, the 2.563 versus the 4%. So so for renters, they can borrow up to $100,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property, which would also include vehicles. So for homeowners, the total package is up to 600,000. Again, 500,000 for repair, replacement of disaster damaged real estate, $100,000 for repair, replacement of personal property, which would include vehicles, and then renters, they're eligible for up to 100,000 to repair, replace disaster damaged personal property, which would include vehicles as well. Now, a couple of questions that were mentioned about deductibles. So that was a major point of a major question that was asked by you, Tina. So at SBA, we consider deductibles as uninsured losses. So if anyone is a part of the FAIR plan and they're underinsured or they are uninsured as far as a deductible, because some deductibles are a little bit higher, and we're talking about high real estate values in the Southern California area, which creates high deductibles. That is considered an uninsured loss. So they are eligible for an SBA loan to cover that deficit or cover that uninsured amount due to the deductible. Also, homeowners are eligible to refinance through SBA at the 2.563%. There is a three-tier criteria that must be met. It has to be their primary residence. They have to intend to repair the damage, and they have to have at least 40% or more uncompensated loss. And that's very important to mention, especially with the California Fair Plan, that may not be enough to cover the actual repairs, because also that refinance may help them in the long run to be able to get into that lower interest rate. Also, mitigative measures. As we rebuild, we want to be able to rebuild stronger and more resilient. So, homeowners can also borrow up to 20% of their total loss for mitigative measures. So, we always talk about defensible space, but, instead of doing, a 40-year roof, maybe some homeowner now may want to do a metal roof, or they may want to put metal shutters on the window instead of more to protect them from future harm. One of the things, I've done 3 disasters for fires in Southern California in the last 8 years. So, fires are becoming more and more prevalent. So it's so important to make sure that when we build back, we want to build back more resilient, more stronger. And that's the purpose of the mitigation programs as well. One of the last things I want to touch on is relocation. We always encourage, and this is why we have our loan program for homeowners and renters. We always encourage the continuity of keeping in your home. But if there are some homeowners that are looking to relocate, they may be eligible for relocation expenses due to different situations. But again, that's a case by case basis that has to be discussed with their loan officer. So I know we had such an extensive area of coverage from Brandy. So I want to go ahead and stop and just answer any questions. That way we can keep the conversation going in regard to SBA.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Corey. We do have a couple questions. So do I have to wait for overall the FEMA grant outcome before I apply for an SBA loan?
That's a great question. And no, you do not have to wait for the outcome of any insurance recovery or any FEMA recovery. Because what happens is once you get your SBA loan, if you've already received any insurance recovery or FEMA recovery, then we can offset your loan by that amount. Now, also, if you receive any funds down the line, you have the option again, because there is the 12-month deferment, there's a 12-month zero interest accrual. So if you were able to get your insurance policy paid out within that given time, and you're actually able to pay out the entire loan, essentially because there's no interest accrual, there is no loan. That's why we strongly encourage everyone to go ahead and apply for SBA loan immediately as soon as they register with FEMA.
Thank you. And does the interest start accruing on an EIDL loan starting the day you receive the money?
Another great question, Tina. So again, keep in mind there's a 12-month zero interest accrual. So,
Right.
so for any business owner that needs those funds, they may be able to use those. I mean, use the funds for the entire calendar year, and then if they're able to get back on their feet without actually, needing the loan, they can turn around and pay the loan, and there's no loan because no interest accrued for the first 12 months of the loan.
Perfect. Is a DBA or a sole proprietor considered as a business for purposes of the SBA loan?
Yes, they are considered a business for purpose of the SBA loan. And for sole proprietors, the process is relatively simple because we're actually just going to most likely use their 1040. But when we get into some of the more complicated business entities, maybe a C Corp, S Corp, PLLCs, and such, it may take a little more time to process those applications. I always say for a sole proprietor, if we have the tax, all our taxes up to date, it probably will take about 15 to 30 days to get an approval. And then if we're looking at some of the more complicated entities, C Corp, S Corp, PLLCs, LLCs, it may take about 4 to 6 weeks. So, but it's still relatively fast. And again, you can't beat the 4% interest rate for business owners with that 12-month deferment as well as 12-month zero interest accrual.
Great. And we have a couple of other questions that are kind of complicated. I'm just aware of our time, so I'm so sorry to the person that asked it. But I think the underbelly of the question is there are some people that have applied, they have gotten approved, but they just need a little help on figuring out how to use it, how to think about the loan, how to think about their other fixed costs like their mortgage and now the payment. And I guess the question is, what's the best way for somebody to reach out to somebody at the SBA, or do you guys do sort of a little coaching, right, in helping people figure out maybe their financial map?
Another outstanding question, Tina. So, the one thing that Brandy alluded to, and I think and I really want to reiterate, is that the disaster recovery centers are your one-stop shop for all needs. In addition to FEMA being in the centers, we also have our outstanding customer service representatives from SBA there. So if there are any questions, especially for homeowners, I would strongly suggest visiting the disaster recovery centers. When these centers open, there's so many resources, not only from the county level, the state level, federal level with FEMA and SBA, that we want to make sure you're taking advantage. Now, here's what I would tell you. For a homeowner, the one thing that I would do, especially because, again, keep in mind, we have the 12-month deferment, we have the 12-month zero interest accrual. It's okay to go ahead and take the loan, have the funds in your account, because you never know, let's say 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, if you need to start out a deposit for your contractor, and he or she says, we need this amount to start out, and you haven't received your insurance recovery at that time, it's always good to be able to say, oh, I have the SBA money that I can lean on because now I've already been approved for the loan. The money's been sitting away. If you want to sit it in a separate account, like an interest bearing account, go ahead and do that, because again, you're not accruing interest. In previous times in the past, when loan funds were initiated, we had programs where we didn't have the 12-month deferment and the zero interest accrual. So that's why we're strongly encouraging for our homeowners, renters, businesses, as well as nonprofits to go ahead and take the money, because again, you're not getting any kind of penalties. You're able to use the funds how you see fit for the course of the calendar year. And then keep in mind that if they decide to go ahead and continue on with the loan terms are amortized up to 30 years at these rates. And these are all fixed rates. So it's not like they're going to fluctuate in year 5 or year 10. These are all fixed rates for the 4% for businesses, 3.625 for nonprofits, homeowners and renters as low as 2.563%.
Wonderful. And I just wanted to know, I know there's some wonderful questions in the chat, and we're out of time, but I'm just going to sum up a little bit. Corey, there's questions about all kinds of things. I haven't paid my taxes in a few years. My income tax doesn't actually represent my true earnings, just people in very unique situations. And I'm just wondering if we could button that up to say, if you have specific questions, is the best thing to do to call the number, to go to recovery center, to apply? Like, give us a little bit about what's our next steps.
Next steps, first step, I would say, visit a disaster recovery center. While there are people in these centers, take advantage of it. You have literally litany of services that are available from county, state, federal level. So take advantage of those services. However, if you cannot get to a center, you can go to lending.sba.gov. Again, I say lending.sba.gov, or you can call our 1-800 number, which is 1-800-659-2955. Again, 800-659-2955. So again, any questions that you may have, go ahead and visit the website. If you cannot personally come to a disaster recovery center, the one thing I will say in regard to the Internal Revenue Service, if they haven't filed their taxes in the last few years, as long as they have an extension in writing from the Internal Revenue Service, then we still would want to look into their file. But we need to make sure that you have an extension that has been approved by the Internal Revenue Service before we try to go further into the file. Because if you are not in compliance with the Internal Revenue Service, again, we are a federal lender, so we have to make sure you are in compliance with the Internal Revenue Service.
Wonderful. So Corey, we are so grateful for you. Thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. I'll check in with you offline, but want to make sure we get that 800 number so we could include that in our resources. So I'll
Awesome.
That's great. And just want to thank you so much. So I'm going to welcome back Keith McNutt to send us off. I also just want to highlight that the Entertainment Community Fund, we created a community gathering space, which started a couple weeks ago. It's every Tuesday from 12 to 1:30. It's a virtual offering. We'll send that with our follow-up email. But again, if you could benefit from being in community, you need some help, we hope that you contact us or any of our community partners. And Keith, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you to everybody who could join us. We hope this information is helpful. We really want to thank Corey Williams and Brandy Richard Thompson from the SBA and FEMA for giving us the information. I want to thank Annette for joining us, Annette Benning, and Tina for organizing all those wonderful questions in such a concise, understandable way. The Entertainment Community Fund has an evergreen resource sheet for all things disaster related that you might need. That's on our website, and that's being updated every day as an ongoing resource. This seminar has been recorded and will be available on our website. And I think most of the partner organizations on the invitation will include it on their website. MPTF is hosting a repeat of this workshop with FEMA and SBA on February 3rd at noon. They'll be sending that, all the organizations will be sending out that information so you can join again. And we also just want to say a huge thank you to the 15 unions, guilds, associations, and nonprofit partners who have joined together in this effort to provide our community with one place to go to get these questions answered. So we hope to do more. We will be here. I know all of our partners will be here. And thank you for joining us. Until next time.